From politicians to celebrities, accusations of bullying seem commonplace at the moment. And as we mark Anti-Bullying Week, a new study has found that a quarter of children are bullied frequently.
Well, the Anti-Bullying Alliance is now calling on adults to think about the example that they are setting for children. Joining us now is the director of the Anti-Bullying Alliance, Martha Evans, and I'm pleased to say Sammy Austen-Jones, an anti-bullying ambassador with the Down Award, also joins us and is 15 years old. So listen, very good morning to you. I'll start with you, Sammy, because, you know, whenever we adults think about young people experiencing bullying, it instantly, I think, for most people, makes them feel very protective of a young person. What's been your own experience of bullying?
So when I was younger, I was actually bullied verbally myself by someone in my year. And it was just something that was continuous all the time. And then I told my parents about it. We mentioned it to the school. They didn't do anything at first, but then later on, they stood up and it completely stopped and I never saw the person again.
How were you not able to see that person again, given you were still in that school environment?
Well, they didn't really speak to me anymore. I still kind of saw them occasionally, but it was kind of... It was kind of near the end of year 6, so I moved in secondary school. So I was actually able to avoid them, and I never had to deal with the bullying again.
Well, that's fantastic that was nipped in the bud then. I want to bring in Martha Evans because the issue of bullying within childhood can have lifelong consequences, can't it? I mean, people are seriously damaged by what on the surface might just seem like playground name-calling, but it can be devastating for youngsters.
It can, and it can last well into adulthood. So we know that children who've been bullied, adults who've been bullied as a child, are more likely to have left schools without qualifications, to not be in stable employment, to not be in a stable relationship, and to have mental health and well-being issues as an adult. So we know it's a really serious issue, which is why we're really pleased that you're covering it today.
Yeah, and there's also there must also be psychological consequences for children that have done the bullying and who they grow up to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we found through our research today that actually children who bully and children who are being bullied are more likely to have a range of issues at school, including not feeling like they belong, not like getting on well with their teachers, not feeling safe at school. So we know that actually children who bully are incredibly unhappy, from what our research seems to show.
Yeah, what's the old saying that kind people don't act unkindly? Happy people don't act unkindly. So there's obviously something going on there, not to excuse it. I just want to ask you, Sammy, do you think that amongst the adults, you know, in public life anyway, and on this programme we talk a lot about politicians. Last week, a former education secretary, for example, got booted out of the cabinet for bullying allegations. We see celebrities being accused of it as well. Do you think we adults are setting a good example when it comes to bullying?
I think there has to be an improvement with everyone, and we all need to look... This is how everyone else wants to be treated. And I always think about the saying that I heard, don't face it alone.
Mm. And Sammy, when you hear about bullying at your school, is there a definition of bullying for you? Where does it go from a little bit of name ribbing, a little bit of teasing to bullying? Or is bullying a subjective thing and it's completely defined by the person who feels they're experiencing it?
So for when I work with the Diana Award, we have like one definition that we look at, and when we see bullying in our school, we kind of assess it. Is it repetitive? Is it unkind? And then if it meets those kind of criteria, that's when we say, look, this is likely bullying, and we then report it to the designated members of staff.
Should people be looking out for, Martha, if they think that their child might be being roughed up or bullied at school? And as we know, actually, it can even happen in your own home whilst your child is safe within your house, because there's so much cyberbullying now as well. What signs should parents be looking out for particularly?
I think you know your child best. So if you notice that your child is suddenly feeling withdrawn or isolated, or they're not their usual self, try and talk to them and find out what's going on. And it might be that they seem very anxious about going to school, or all of a sudden not wanting to go on their phone, or being really anxious to be with their phone. Those are the kinds of signs that your child might be being bullied. So the best thing to do is to have those conversations, and to not let the first time you talk about bullying be when your child comes to you and says that they're being bullied. Have those conversations about what a good friendship is, how we treat each other, and make sure that when we're talking about bullying, we're not talking about people having a falling out. It's really important that we allow children to have those kinds of arguments and disagreements and navigate that themselves. But when it's repetitive, when it's intentional, when it's hurtful, and it's going on for a long period of time, that's when it can be really damaging.
And final question, and this is to both of you: stand up to bullies or report them?
For me, I'd say always report it, because standing up, there's always the chance that it could go wrong and or it won't go according to plan, and even you could get in trouble. So it's always best to report it to a trusted adult, member of staff, parent, carer, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Sammy, you've got a wise head on your shoulders. Would you agree with that, Martha?
I do agree with that, and I think what's really important is that we, as adults and as other children who might be seeing bullying taking place, help children to reach out, and we can see it when it happens. So let's all reach out this anti-bullying week.
Absolutely. Listen, Martha Evans, Sammy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming in, talking about this really important issue. We really appreciate it. It does make my blood boil. Absolutely makes my blood boil. I hate bullies. Absolutely hate bullies. Terrible.